From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another exciting episode of the CyberHub Podcast. We've got a packed show for all of y'all today. My name is James Azar. I'm a Chief Information Security Officer and host of the CyberHub Podcast. We're on episode, I believe, 914 or 15 this morning. Quite like we've been doing this a while. All right, so if you're tuning in, this week's already crazy, and it's Wednesday. And whenever we do the show, kind of like some background, we study a bunch of stories. We have a really curated feed of stories we go through and kind of stuff we bring to you. And we have some days where you can barely scratch the surface, and we have other days where it's so much. Today's one of those so much days. So we're going to get right into this, meaning in about 2 seconds, I'm going to take a sip of my espresso, and then we're going to get started. So without further ado, I have my double espresso, which is a CyberHub Podcast tradition here. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Love a good espresso on the morning. This, by the way, like I still have some capsules I got when I was in Israel a few months ago. Unbelievable. Just really good Nespresso capsules. And they're not made by Nespresso, but Elite, which is an Israeli brand of coffee. So all the power to them for making just unbelievably delicious espresso. So we'll get started with Coinbase. So Coinbase is now starting to do their breach notification. So the breach just happened. Not even less than a week ago, but you can tell Coinbase has been on this for quite some time. Their chief security officer, their incident response plan, their forensics, they're on this. And I think because they're on this is absolutely unbelievable in terms of speed. A notification filed with the Maine Attorney General says that the crypto exchange with over 100 million customers, the cyber criminals were able to breach and steal some corporate data, customer and corporate data, affecting 69,461 individuals. Small number of individuals performing services for Coinbase at our overseas retail support locations improperly accessed customer information is how they base it. While the exposed data didn't include passwords, seed phrases, private keys, or other information, it did include some PII like names, dates of birth, last four of the social, masked bank account numbers, and some bank account identifiers, some addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses. Again, I have an issue with that. I have an issue with how we define PII. I think it's time that gets revamped. 20 years ago, you'd pick up a phone book, you'd have everyone's name and phone number on there, an address. So why is that protected information online? Like, I just don't buy it. I don't know. Maybe I'm off here. Let me know your opinions in the comments. All right. So on Thursday, when they disclosed the breach data, let's say the cost of this breach could reach up to 400 million. The estimation is anywhere between 180 to 400 million for remediation and customer refunds of the money stolen. We don't know exactly how much money was taken out of customer accounts as of yet. That number has not been established or identified by Coinbase, and so we don't know that number yet. We move to another data breach impacting a wireless telecom company based out of Wisconsin called Cellcom, who's confirming that a cyber attack has been responsible for a service outage for the last week. Cellcom has both voice and text services in Wisconsin and Upper Michigan. The company started to slowly restore some of them over the past couple of days. In a letter issued out to customers, Cellcom CEO Brigid Rayardan said they've experienced a cyber incident, and while it's unfortunate, it's not something we were unprepared for. We have protocols and plans in place for exactly this kind of situation. They've notified relevant authorities. Now, they've had to take down their systems, meaning the impact. So some industries have siloed OT and IT. Telecom's not one of those. Telecom's OT and IT sit in one place, kind of like manufacturing, which is different from energy and oil and gas, where they're completely siloed. OT's on one end, IT's on the other. They rarely speak. In telecom and in manufacturing, the communication between OT and IT happens all the time. It happens all the time. And so there's an integration. So when you don't maintain your IT environment or your OT environment, you're introducing additional risks, and it's double the risk. And we're seeing that. We saw that with manufacturing. Yesterday on the show, we talked about these food manufacturers that did have issues with cyber attacks. We've seen that with Clorox last year. Like, these are real threats. These are real vulnerabilities that result to this. This is the case here as well. So it's interesting that they hit a small telecom provider there. The company said it would provide updates on both restoration efforts and its investigation, but as of yet, they don't know if any personal information was taken or if anything like that. So meaning they don't know anything yet. They're just trying to restore. In Russia, major Russian state services were disrupted, reportedly due to a denial of service attack originating from abroad. At the time that the Record wrote this article, Down Detector showed ongoing disruptions to Russia's tax service, as well as services managing secure digital keys and documents, among other. Sabian FNS confirmed the outages were caused by a large-scale DDoS attack from abroad and saying they're working on restoring access to their systems. This isn't the first time Russia has experienced these types of outages. For everything we talk about Russia attacking Ukraine or Europe, Russia on their end also take a beating. Not justifying it, I'm just saying balance is due. So last week, another major outage affected Russian banking applications. Their social network, similar to Facebook, called vKontakty, some of their messaging services, and even Yandex platforms and mobile networks. Yandex is the Google equivalent to Russia. The St. Petersburg-based telecom company Severin Telecom reported a DDoS attack on its server as well. And Russia telecommunication watchdog Roskomnadzor confirmed issues with the Russian internet services last week, but hasn't commented on what the reason is for that disruption. Understand, the Russia and Ukraine war is 100% translated in the cyber realm. You see that there as well. This isn't far-fetched that this is a Ukrainian-based attack on Russian infrastructure as well. Ukraine will do that, and they absolutely have the capabilities to do just that. Mark and Spencer's are now saying that the ransomware attack or cyber attack that happened Easter weekend, so that's a month ago, could end up costing them nearly $402 million or 300 million quids following the attack, as disruptions are expected to continue until July. The company, a constituent of the FTSE 100 index, announced it was managing the incident on Easter weekend. Its app and online shopping are still unavailable. Customers have been warned their data was compromised. Shelves at some stores are sporadically empty due to some stocking challenges. They're seeking to claim the maximum from its insurance policy, up to 100 million quids. In a statement filed with the London Stock Exchange on Wednesday, the company said it expects the 300 million quid or $402 million impact on its operating profit before cost mitigation, insurance, and trading actions. Their shares rose 1.9% on Wednesday following the statement, and they're up more than 5% since 5 days ago, although the price does remain down 8.8% from its high before the attack was confirmed. Since the incident, food sales have been impacted as well by reduced availability, although it is already improving. They've also incurred additional waste and logistics costs due to the need to operate manual processes, impacting profits in their first quarter. Investors were informed that the company is using the disruption to bring forward investment, rephasing the original program, accelerating plans to upgrade infrastructure, network connectivity, store and colleague technology, and supply chain systems. So they're actually using this to just rebuild it all from scratch, stuff they may have talked about for a while but never did anything about it. $402 million. If that's not bringing your attention to these types of incidents and what they actually cost a business, then you're in a world of hurt, right? And we all wish we could burn down some infrastructure and rebuild it, and cyber attack sometimes gives you that ability. A little while ago, we talked about the SK Telecom data breach here on the show. I think that happened a little over 6 weeks ago. Now we're getting more information that the breach actually started all the way back in 2022. It exposing and ultimately exposing the US IM data of 27 million subscribers of the largest mobile network operator in South Korea, holding roughly half of the national market. On April 19th, the company detected malware on its network, responded by isolating the equipment, and suspected of being hacked. On May 8th, the government committee investigating the incident declared the malware infection compromised 25 different data types. Then they went through a SIM replacement program for all of their subscribers, which they didn't have enough of. And then they started a joint public-private investigation team examining SK Telecom's 30,000 Linux servers, released a report on the initial web shell infection on June 15th, of 2022. June 15th of 2022. The attackers were in their systems for nearly 3 years. This means malware went undetected in their systems, and that the attackers introduced several payloads across multiple servers, overall 23 different servers. The investigation does claim that 15 of the 23 infected servers contained personal customer information, including 291,831 IMEI numbers, though SK Telecom explicitly denied this in their latest press release. The investigation team also noted that SK Telecom started logging activity on the impacted server only on December 3rd of 2024. Therefore, any data exfiltration between then would have not been detected. Holy smokes. Talk about technical gaps. Technical gaps up the yin-yang for SK Telecom. Let this be a lesson. The hacking incident last year at the Nationwide Recovery Service, which is a third-party debt collection firm, has affected a long and growing list of clients with at least hundreds of thousands of individuals so far. Victims include 210,000 patients of the Harbin Clinic in Georgia, nearly 90,000 patients of the Texas-based Virtuoven Health, also known as Hamilton Healthcare, as well as numerous other firms in healthcare and other sectors. The Harbin Clinic, in a breach reported to the Maine Attorney General on Friday of last week, said the NRS hacking affected 210,140 individuals, but didn't involve their own IT systems, rather third parties that they were using for debt collection. So similarly, we're seeing that across, and again, your supply chain, this becomes a major issue, and you carry just as much of the responsibility as you do if it happened in your own environment. The state on Monday were reported that the state of Alabama was experiencing a cybersecurity incident that had taken down core services at the state level. The governor of Alabama said they've wrapped up their response to the systems they identified 10 days ago, and they won't be offering any further details about the nature of the incident, but did say that their systems are back up and operating. This was discovered on May 9th. When the attack did happen on May 16th, there was no evidence of exfiltration of PII of Alabamians, and there's been no major disruptions to services. All in all, they've handled it and moved it along. So there's that there. Wiz is now warning again about if you're gluten for punishment and you love Ivanti, please, I mean, no one will raise their hands and say, I love it, I'm sticking to it, I love punishments, I love them. No one's saying it. Well, we talked about it on the show yesterday. Now we got more information. Wiz saying that the route configuration in EPMM doesn't properly handle requests. It exposes routes without authentication due to missing rules in the Spring Framework's security configuration. The bug does exist because user-supplied input within error messages is handled unsafely when processed via the Spring function. It does allow an attacker to craft and format parameters and execute arbitrary Java code. According to Wiz, while each of the two security defects is a medium severity vulnerability, their combination should be treated as a critical security risk. So the folks over at Wiz have also identified multiple payloads deployed as part of the observed attacks, including a silver beacon connecting to a CNC IP address previously linked to the exploitation of other vulnerable appliances, including Palo Alto's products running Pan OS. So that IP address still remains in operation. You want to patch this up and block that IP address. The developers of OpenPGP released a update to patch a critical vulnerability that could be exploited to spoof message signature verification. OpenPGP.js is an open source JavaScript implementation of the OpenPGP email encryption library. Its website shows that it's used by projects like FlowCrypt, MyMailCrypt, UDCCrypt.2, PGP Anywhere, and Passbolt. Researchers Eduardo Garacci and Thomas Rensama of Coden Labs discovered the vulnerability. The flaw enables an attacker to spoof signature verification using a specially crafted message passed to the OpenPGP.verify or OpenPGP.decrypt function, causing them to return a valid signature verification result while returning data that was not actually signed. So that's been addressed. The CVE has been assigned. That's 2025-47934, and it impacts version 5 and 6, and it was patched with the release of versions 5.11.3 and 6.1.1, and there are workarounds still available. The judge in Georgia is allowing the lawsuit of Delta Airline against CrowdStrike to proceed. So now the lawsuit continues. Constructing the pleadings in the light of the most favorable to Delta, it's been alleged that the existence of a confidential relationship that could create an independent duty sufficient to allow its gross negligence claim to proceed, according to Fulton County Superior Judge Kelly Lee Ellerbury wrote on Friday. She dismissed the fraud claims based on representations made prior to June of 2022, but allowed Delta's remaining claims to proceed. So now this continues to court. This will likely get settled, but it's still taking time. We'll see how this pans out. The Dutch government passing law criminalizing cyber espionage. The law has been approved, and it criminalizes a broader range of espionage activity, including digital espionage, in an effort to protect national security, critical infrastructure, and sensitive technologies. The legislation passed over the weekend extends existing espionage laws that made it a criminal offense to share state secrets. The updated law says leaking sensitive information that's not classified as a state secret or engaging in activities on behalf of a foreign government that harm Dutch interests can result in criminal charges. The rise of cyber espionage is increasing. Offenders could face up to 8 years in prison with the possibility of 12 years in extreme cases. So the Dutch intelligence is obviously raising. We've seen alarms over this. We've seen Russia actually use people in various European countries for their own benefit, and meaning they're hacking these organizations and then they're using local groups in order to do physical attacks. So that's all coming together. And a Massachusetts student has pled guilty in court to hacking 2 U.S. companies and extorting them for ransom. One of the organization appears to be PowerSchool. Matthew D. Lane, 19, was charged with extorting $200,000 ransom from a telecommunication company in exchange for not publicly sharing data he stole. According to the indictment, the telecom provider was hacked in October of 2022, and confidential customer information was stolen from its systems. Last year, Lane and others conspired to extort the carrier, threatening to leak the stolen information. The indictment also alleges that in September of 2024, Lane used an employee's stolen credentials to hack a network of a company that serves school districts in the U.S. and Canada, stealing personal information of both students and teachers. The indictment indicates that on December 28th, the company received a ransom demand alleging that the PII of over 60 million students and more than 10 million teachers would be leaked online, unless a ransom of roughly 2.85 million would be paid in Bitcoin. While the company has not been named, many are attributing this to PowerSchool, which could be there. Again, nothing to do that there as well. So we don't know that Lane agreed to plead guilty to hacking the 2 companies, and a plea hearing has not yet been scheduled. He could be fined thousands of dollars in addition to being sentenced in prison. Some of these happened when he was a minor, so we'll see how they treat those. I haven't read the full plea yet, so once I do, I'll write something on it on X and on LinkedIn, so you can go and see that there. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, live with all the latest and greatest news for the week. So make sure to go check out CyberHubPodcast.com for all the latest and greatest. Until then, have a great rest of your day, y'all. Thank you all for tuning in, and most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.